The wind howled through the black mountains of Virene, carrying the sound of fear and betrayal. The twin moons hung above like cold silver eyes, watching everything that happened below. At the edge of a high cliff, a small girl stood, her feet bare against the frozen stone. Her name was Lyra, the youngest princess of the Virene royal family. Her silver-white hair whipped in the wind, and her glowing eyes shimmered with tears. Around her stood 6 armored guards. Their armor reflected the pale light of the moons, cold and unfeeling. Behind them, an elder of the royal council raised a staff carved from crystal. His voice echoed like thunder across the cliffs. "By the law of our blood," he said, "we cast out the cursed child." Lyra's small hands trembled. "Please," she whispered, her voice lost in the wind. "I didn't do anything wrong." The elder's eyes narrowed. "You were born wrong." He lifted his hand toward her. Strange light ran through his veins, glowing blue lines of alien power. The guard stepped forward, forming a circle around her. One of them, a tall soldier with scarred armor, hesitated for a moment. He looked at the girl and then at the elder. "She's just a child," he said quietly. The elder glared. "She is half human. You know what that means." The soldier lowered his eyes. He did not move again. Lyra tried to run, but one of the guards caught her by the arm. His grip was strong, cold as steel. She screamed and kicked, but they dragged her closer to the cliff's edge. Her feet slipped on the wet stone, and she looked down. A black abyss stretched below, endless darkness filled with mist and roaring wind. The sound of the canyon was like a monster's breath. "Mother," Lyra cried, but there was no answer. The queen was gone. Her mother had died months ago, poisoned by the same council that now judged her daughter. Only the elder spoke again. "Let this act cleanse our royal blood." Lightning flashed across the sky. The guards lifted Lyra by her arms. Her small body twisted in their grip. She screamed again, her voice filled with pure terror. Then, without mercy, they threw her from the cliff. For a moment, time stopped. Lyra's body fell through the air, hair floating around her like white fire. The wind tore the scream from her throat. Above her, the guards turned away, their faces hidden behind metal masks. The storm swallowed her voice. Down she fell, deeper and deeper, past jagged rocks and glowing mist. The cold tore at her skin, and blood ran down her arm where the guard's fingers had bruised her. She tried to open her wings, small, silver-like flaps that her alien side had grown, but they were weak, not yet formed. They tore in the wind, useless. As she fell, she remembered her mother's last words, whispered to her one night before the council came. "If anything happens, my little star, find the humans. They will help you. You are part of them. Never forget that." Lyra hit the water below with a deafening crash. Darkness closed around her. She sank deep into the freezing river that ran beneath the canyon. For a moment she saw nothing, no light, no air, no pain. Only silence. Then something flickered. A small red light under the water, blinking faintly. It wasn't from her world. It was human technology. The light came from a small metal pod half buried in the river mud. The shape was old, scorched, almost dead. As Lyra drifted closer, the red light blinked faster, as if recognizing her presence. The pod's screen lit up, showing words in a human language. "Signal detected. Hybrid confirmed." A weak mechanical voice spoke inside the pod. "Rescue mode. Engaged." A soft beam of light spread from the pod and wrapped around Lyra's body. The energy lifted her slowly, bringing her to the riverbank. Her body trembled from cold and shock, but her eyes opened, glowing faintly again. Above, the storm grew stronger. Lightning split the sky. The elder and his guards rode away, never looking back. Hours passed. The storm moved on. Only the wind and the distant sound of thunder remained. At dawn, the sky turned pale blue. The young princess lay motionless beside the river. Her small chest rose and fell. She was still alive. The pod beside her gave a final weak beep, and a small metal arm reached out. It scanned her face and recorded her heartbeat before shutting down completely. 15 miles above, orbiting the planet, a forgotten satellite blinked to life. The signal from the pod reached it, faint but clear. Hybrid lifeform detected, coordinates locked. In deep space, far beyond the planet's orbit, another system received the signal. Inside an abandoned human ship, a dormant AI came online for the first time in 15 years. Its single glowing eye turned toward the planet Virene. The machine's voice echoed through the empty halls. "Target found. Activating beacon. The ship's engines hummed. The AI sensors scanned the planet below. It detected one life sign, weak but still burning. The girl had survived the fall. Down in the canyon, Lyra's fingers moved. She coughed, gasped for air, and opened her eyes again. The first rays of morning light fell on her face. She didn't know where she was. She didn't know that she had just been marked by fate, or that something human was already on its way. She only knew one thing. She was alive. And she would never forget the faces of those who had thrown her from the cliff. As the camera slowly zooms out, the canyon stretches like an endless scar across the alien land. A single spark of light shines beside her, the silent pod still blinking. The human signal has been sent. The story of the fall has just begun. 15 years had passed since the night of the fall. The story of the cursed princess had turned into a whisper, a bedtime warning told to children across the empire of Virene. No one spoke her name anymore. No one dared to. The council had erased her from every record. But legends have a way of living longer than truth. The forgotten signal high above the planet. The human satellite that had once blinked for her still floated in orbit, covered in dust and ice. Its old systems flickered weakly every few years, sending one faint signal into the darkness. Far away, in a forgotten human colony called Station Ember, a pilot named Eli Grant was checking through old distress frequencies. He was 27, tall, quiet, and tired of the endless wars between humans and alien kingdoms. He had grown up hearing stories of Virene, stories of cold-hearted aliens and their royal cruelty. As he scrolled through ancient transmissions, something strange caught his attention. A single repeating code. "Hybrid alive!" Eli leaned forward, staring at the screen. "That's impossible," he muttered. The message had been repeating for 15 years. The same signal, same coordinates, same origin. Deep inside the forbidden zones of Virene, his ship's AI, a soft female voice named Nora, spoke up. "Captain, that area is restricted by both human and Virene treaties. Entering would be a violation of Galactic Code 17A. Eli smiled slightly. "Good thing I'm not much of a rule follower." The AI paused. "You think this signal means something?" He looked at the flickering code again. "Someone or something survived down there. And I want to know who." The forbidden planet Eli's small scout ship, the Wraith, entered Virene's orbit quietly. The planet was beautiful from above, silver clouds and glowing blue oceans. But underneath that beauty was a world ruled by fear. Down below, the capital city of Vera shimmered like a jewel of crystal towers. The royal banners waved proudly, but behind those banners, thousands of slaves worked under the hot suns. The Virene Empire had grown even more powerful, but also more cruel. Eli avoided the main spaceports and flew toward the outer regions, a dead zone called the Riftlands, where even Virene soldiers refused to go. The air shimmered with strange energy, and lightning storms danced across the sky. As he entered the atmosphere, his sensors flickered. "Power levels dropping," Nora warned. "Something's jamming us." Eli's hands tightened on the controls. "Hold steady. We're not leaving yet." Through the clouds, he saw deep canyons cutting across the land, dark scars filled with mist, the same cliffs where a small girl had once fallen long ago. The ghost of the canyon, Eli landed his ship near the edge of the canyon. The air was still and cold. He stepped out, his boots crunching against black sand. All around him were strange crystal formations that glowed faintly with blue light. Nora spoke through his headset. "Signal strength increasing. The source is near, less than 1 kilometer." Eli walked carefully, scanning the area with his handheld tracker. The ground was covered in vines and old wreckage, broken drones, weapons, bones. It looked like a battlefield that had been forgotten by time. Suddenly, his tracker beeped sharply. Something was moving in the mist. He turned on his light. For a second, he thought he saw a figure standing among the rocks. Tall, cloaked, motionless. But when he blinked, it was gone. "Nora," he whispered. "Did you see that?" Thermal reading detected. Life form ahead. Not human, Eli's heart pounded. He stepped forward slowly, reaching for his blaster. From the mist came a soft sound, a whisper, almost like a voice carried by the wind. "You shouldn't have come here." Eli froze. The voice was calm, but filled with warning. He turned, trying to locate it, but the canyon echoed from all directions. Then the figure appeared again, closer this time. A tall woman cloaked in dark silver fabric, her face hidden by a hood. Her hands glowed faintly with blue light. Eli raised his weapon. "Who are you?" The figure tilted her head. "No human has set foot here in many years." "Why now?" "I'm answering a signal," he said, keeping his aim steady. "It led me to this place." For a long moment she said nothing. Then slowly she pulled down her hood. Her face glowed softly in the dim light. Pale skin, silver hair, and eyes that shimmered like molten crystal. She looked alien. Yet something in her face felt human. Too human. Eli's breath caught. "You're—" "Yes," she said quietly. "The one they threw away." The lost Princess Liv's Lyra looked at the human before her, studying his every move. For 15 years she had lived in the shadows, surviving off the wild, learning to use her strange powers, hiding from the guards who still hunted the cursed child. She had built her own shelter in the ruins below the cliffs, using what she found from old human machines. The pod that once saved her life still glowed faintly in her cave, its battery almost gone, but the memory inside it had never faded. "Why are you here?" she asked again, voice sharp. "The humans left. They don't care about this world." Eli lowered his weapon slowly. "Maybe not, but I do. I found your signal." Lyra's eyes softened slightly. "Then you found me." The air grew still. For the first time, someone from the human world had seen her, not as a monster, but as something real. She turned away, her cloak swaying in the wind. "You shouldn't have come. They'll sense your ship soon." "Who?" Eli asked. Lyra looked up at the storm clouds forming above. "The ones who tried to kill me," she said quietly. "And they won't let me live again." Suspense and thunder rolled across the canyon. Far above, a royal satellite blinked, detecting Eli's unauthorized landing. In the capital, alarms began to sound. A command was sent to the Royal Army. "Recover the hybrid. Kill the human." Back in the canyon, Lyra turned to Eli, her eyes glowing brighter. "If you want to live," she said, "follow me." The two figures disappeared into the mist as the first royal dropships began descending through the clouds. The hunt had begun again. But this time the lost princess was not alone. The wind screamed through the canyon as two shadows ran across the jagged rocks, one human, one not. Eli followed closely behind the alien girl who had just saved his life. Her cloak fluttered like smoke, and faint blue light shimmered beneath her feet with every step. She moved like a ghost, fast and silent. "Where are we going?" Eli shouted over the wind. Lyra didn't turn back. "Somewhere they can't find us." Behind them, the sound of engines echoed through the canyon. Royal dropships cut through the clouds, their bright lights sweeping across the ground. Metallic voices shouted orders in the alien tongue of Virene. Eli glanced up. "They're tracking us!" Lyra stopped suddenly and turned to him, eyes glowing brighter than before. Not for long. She raised her hand and the ground beneath them trembled. A massive crystal wall burst out from the earth, blocking the path behind them. The ships above crashed into the barrier and exploded in a flash of light. Eli stumbled back, stunned. What was that?" Lyra's voice was calm, though her breathing was heavy. "Old power. My blood carries it. Half Virene, half something else." She looked away as if ashamed of her own strength. Eli realized that she wasn't just a survivor. She was dangerous. But in her eyes he saw something else too. Pain. The hidden city. They climbed deeper into the canyon until the sky disappeared behind the cliffs. The air grew warmer, and the sound of rushing water filled the silence. Ahead, glowing crystals lined a massive cave entrance. Lyra walked into the darkness, and the crystals lit up around her, reacting to her presence. The walls shimmered with blue light, showing tunnels that led to strange, ancient structures carved into the stone. Eli looked around in awe. "What is this place?" "This was once the heart of the old Virene," Lyra said softly, "before the council turned us into conquerors. My mother used to bring me here when I was small. She said this city belonged to the stars." She paused, then added in a low voice, "Now it belongs to no one." Eli followed her deeper inside. The floor was covered with dust, and broken machines lay half buried in the rock, clearly human design. He knelt beside one, brushing off the dirt. "These are old Earth components," he said. "We built things like this centuries ago." Lyra nodded slowly. "Your people came here once." "Long before I was born. My mother said humans helped build the first Virene cities. But then came war. Fear turned friends into enemies. Eli looked up at her. And now we're both paying for their mistakes. Lyra didn't reply. She just kept walking until they reached a massive crystal gate. She placed her hand on it, and lines of blue light crawled across the surface like veins waking from sleep. The gate opened with a low hum. Inside was a hidden chamber filled with silver vines, glowing orbs, and strange machines. In the center stood a small pod, the same one that had saved her 15 years ago. Echoes of the past Lyra knelt beside the pod, running her hand across its dented surface. "This saved me when they threw me away," she said quietly. It spoke in your language. I didn't understand it then, but I do now. The pod flickered faintly to life, showing a projection of an old human symbol, a blue star inside a circle. Eli's eyes widened. That's the emblem of the Earth Alliance. My father served under that mark. Lyra looked at him. Then maybe this was meant for you. Before Eli could answer, the cave shook violently. Dust fell from the ceiling. Nora's voice crackled through his earpiece. "Captain, enemy forces approaching fast. At least 3 dropships detected." Lyra stood up. Her calm expression faded. "They found us. How?" Eli asked, already checking his weapon. Lyra's face hardened. "Because of me. My energy leaves a trace. They've been hunting me for years." The noise of engines grew louder outside. Shadows moved across the cave walls as soldiers descended from the cliffs. Eli aimed his blaster toward the entrance. "Then we fight." Lyra's eyes narrowed. "You fight your way. I'll fight mine." The battle in the dark, the first group of royal soldiers burst into the cave, tall, armored aliens with glowing blades. They spoke in harsh tones, ordering Lyra to surrender. Eli fired first. Blue light flashed from his weapon, striking one soldier in the chest. The others raised shields, energy sparking across them. Lyra lifted both hands, and the air around her exploded with light. Crystals shattered, and invisible force knocked several soldiers into the air. The cave roared with chaos. Blaster fire, shouts, and the sound of metal hitting stone. Eli ducked behind a fallen pillar. "Remind me not to get on your bad side." Lyra smiled faintly but said nothing. Her body glowed brighter, her power burning through her veins. She moved with speed and grace, her energy cutting through armor like it was paper. But there were too many. The soldiers kept coming. "Lyra!" Eli shouted. "We're surrounded!" She looked up toward the top of the cave, where daylight streamed faintly through a narrow crack. She reached for him. "Take my hand." "What? Why?" "Just trust me." He grabbed her hand, and suddenly the world blurred. A rush of wind and light swallowed them both as her power surged. The escape in a heartbeat, they reappeared outside, high above the canyon floor. The air was thin and cold. Eli gasped, trying to understand what had happened. "You teleported us?" he asked, trembling. Lyra looked weak now, her skin pale, her eyes dimming. "It's not teleportation," she whispered. "It's memory. The energy remembers where I've been." Eli caught her as she stumbled. "You're burning out." "I'm fine," she lied, though her hands shook. Far below, explosions echoed from the cave they had escaped. The soldiers were regrouping, preparing to follow. Eli looked at the horizon. "We can't stay here. They'll keep coming." Lyra nodded slowly. "There's a place deeper in the Riftlands. Somewhere even the Council fears to go. I can take you there," he helped her stand. "Then lead the way, Princess." Lyra froze for a moment. It had been 15 years since anyone had called her that. "Don't call me Princess," she said quietly. "Not yet." Suspense end as. The two disappeared into the mist again. A broken communicator from one of the fallen soldiers crackled to life. "Command, this is Unit 12. The hybrid is confirmed alive. Repeat, the hybrid lives. She has a human with her." In the capital city, the High Elder of the Council heard the message and smiled coldly. "Then the curse of her bloodline returns," he whispered. "Send the hunters." The chase was far from over, and this time both worlds would burn before it ended. The twin suns rose over the mountains of Vereen, painting the sky with red fire. From above, the canyon looked peaceful, quiet, empty, untouched. But under that silence, war machines were moving. The royal hunters had begun their pursuit. Dark ships hovered above the Riftlands, scanning every valley, every cave, every movement of dust. Inside the lead ship stood Commander Varek, the same soldier who had once thrown a crying child off a cliff 15 years ago. His face was older, now marked with scars and regret that he never spoke of. "The hybrid is alive," said his second officer. "The council demands her capture. Dead, if necessary." Varek's jaw tightened. He stared at the planet below. "She was supposed to die that night," he muttered. "Then make sure she does," the officer replied coldly. Varek didn't answer. His hand brushed the metal insignia on his armor, the mark of the royal guard. Once he had sworn to protect the royal bloodline. Now he was hunting it. In the shadow of the rift far below, Eli and Lyra traveled through a maze of deep canyons. The air was thin and red dust clung to their clothes. They hadn't spoken for hours. Lyra moved quietly, her eyes scanning every shadow. Eli finally broke the silence. "You said there's a place even the council fears. What is it?" Lyra stopped at the edge of a broken bridge and looked across the deep ravine. "It's called the Hollow Sanctum. It's old, older than the Vereen Empire. My mother once said it was built by the first humans who came here." Eli frowned. "Humans built something on this planet? Why would they come to such a hostile place?" Lyra's expression darkened. "Because they weren't invaders. They were teachers. They came with peace, not weapons. But the council betrayed them." Eli looked away, feeling the weight of history pressing down. "And your mother?" "She tried to make peace between both sides," Lyra said softly. "She believed Vereen and humans were meant to stand together. But when I was born..." Her voice cracked. "They said my existence was proof of her crime." The wind howled through the canyon, carrying her words away. Eli didn't know what to say. He just looked at her, the half-human girl who had survived everything the universe had thrown at her, and saw someone far stronger than she realized. The hunters arrive. A low rumble echoed across the rocks. The ground trembled. Eli turned sharply toward the horizon. "Nora," he called through his earpiece. "Status?" The AI's calm voice replied, "Multiple life forms detected. 6 ships inbound. Estimated contact, 3 minutes." Lyra's eyes glowed faintly. "They've found us again," Eli cursed under his breath. "We need cover." Lyra pointed toward a narrow tunnel at the base of the canyon. "There, hurry!" They ran, the sound of engines growing louder behind them. Dust and debris rained down as the hunters fired plasma bolts into the cliffs. Blue fire exploded around them, lighting up the canyon like a storm. Eli dove behind a rock and fired back, his blaster bolts reflecting off the enemy shields. Lyra closed her eyes and focused. The air shimmered around her, and invisible energy burst outward, forming a shimmering barrier that blocked the next attack. "You can do that?" Eli shouted. "Not for long," she said through gritted teeth. The barrier cracked under the force of another blast. Lyra fell to her knees, exhausted. Eli grabbed her arm and pulled her into the tunnel just before the ground exploded behind them. Echoes of the past inside the tunnel. Faint lights glowed on the walls. Strange markings written in both human and Vereen symbols. Eli brushed his hand across one of them. "These are old. Thousands of years, maybe." Lyra looked at the symbols, recognizing fragments of her mother's teachings. "They tell the story of unity, when humans and Vereen shared knowledge. But the council destroyed it. They called it blasphemy." As they walked deeper, the tunnel opened into a vast underground chamber. At its center stood a massive machine, covered in dust but still pulsing faintly with light. It looked like a mix of alien design and human engineering, smooth silver mixed with living crystal. Eli stared in disbelief. This is impossible. That's human technology fused with alien energy." Lyra touched the machine gently, and the chamber hummed to life. Holographic images filled the air, humans and Vereen standing together, building, smiling. "My mother was right," Lyra whispered. "We were never meant to be enemies." The images shifted suddenly. The hologram showed the day of her mother's death, the council surrounding her, declaring her a traitor. Lyra watched silently as her mother spoke her final words. "One day the blood of 2 worlds will unite. The child of both will bring balance." Tears filled Lyra's eyes. Eli stood beside her, unsure what to say. Then the hologram faded, replaced by a warning symbol flashing in red. Hostile units detected. The tunnel shook as explosions echoed outside. The hunters had found the entrance. Eli aimed his weapon at the doorway. We can't hold them off forever. Lyra's voice grew cold. We don't need to. She placed both hands on the ancient machine. Energy surged through her body, lighting up her veins with bright silver light. The machine roared to life, sending waves of power through the chamber. The first soldiers burst through the door, but as they stepped inside, the ground itself turned against them. Crystals shot upward, trapping them in glowing cages. The machine responded to Lyra's blood, to her half-human energy, obeying her commands like a living thing. Commander Varric entered last, his weapon aimed directly at her. He froze when he saw her face. It's you, he whispered. The child Lyra raised her hand and energy sparked between them. You threw me away. Varric hesitated. I followed orders. I had no choice. Lyra's voice trembled, half anger, half sorrow. You always had a choice. Before he could reply, another explosion ripped through the wall. Dust and fire filled the air. The ceiling began to collapse. Eli grabbed Lyra's arm. We have to go. She looked back at Varric, the man who had once ended her childhood, and then turned away. Together, she and Eli ran deeper into the tunnels as the chamber crumbled behind them. Suspense and outside, smoke rose from the canyon. The hunter's ship circled above the ruins. Commander Varric crawled from the wreckage, his armor broken, his face covered in dust. He looked toward the burning cliffs and whispered to himself, Forgive me. Princess. Above him, the royal satellite blinked again, sending a message back to the capital. The hybrid lives. She has awakened the relic. In the royal palace, the High Elder smiled darkly. Then the age of humans truly ends. But far below, in the endless tunnels of the Riftlands, a new power was awakening, one born from both worlds, ready to rise. The world was burning. Smoke rose from the shattered cliffs as the royal hunters searched the ruins of the sanctum. But far beneath the chaos hidden inside a collapsing tunnel, two figures lay silent, one human, one not. Lyra opened her eyes slowly. The air was heavy with dust, and her body ached from the blast. She tried to move, but her limbs felt weak. Beside her, Eli groaned, blood running down his temple. Still alive? He whispered. Barely, Lyra replied, her voice rough. Where are we? Eli looked around. They were inside a metallic chamber lit by faint red lights. Strange symbols glowed on the walls, pulsing like a heartbeat. It wasn't part of the sanctum. It was something deeper, something older. This place isn't on any map, Eli said. It looks human. Lyra ran her fingers over the glowing symbols. No, she whispered, not just human. Before she could say more, the ground beneath them trembled. A section of the wall slid open, and blinding light filled the room. Dozens of armored soldiers marched in, their weapons raised. At their center walked Commander Varric. End of the road, he said coldly. Eli stood in front of Lyra, blaster drawn. Stay back. But Varric didn't raise his weapon. He simply looked at the girl he had once thrown from a cliff. His eyes were not filled with hate, only with something heavier. Guilt. 15 years, he said quietly. And still you live. Lyra's voice was sharp. You sound disappointed. Varric shook his head slowly. No, I sound tired. He motioned to his men. Take them both. The council will want to see this. Lyra tried to fight, but she was too weak. The soldiers surrounded them, shocking her with energy cuffs. Eli was struck in the head, falling unconscious. As they were dragged away, Lyra's eyes burned with silent fury. The palace of chains hours later, Lyra awoke inside a cold metal cell. The walls hummed faintly, energy barriers that burned to the touch. She could feel the faint vibration of engines. They were no longer underground. They were aboard a royal warship headed toward the capital. Across from her, in another cell, Eli stirred. His wrists were bound, but his spirit wasn't broken. When he saw her, he smiled faintly despite the bruises. "You okay?" he asked. "I've been better," she said, forcing a smile. The door hissed open. Commander Varric stepped inside, flanked by guards. He looked at Lyra for a long moment, then deactivated the energy field. "The Council will interrogate you soon," he said. "But before they do, you need to know something." Lyra glared at him. "I don't want your stories." "You should," Varric said quietly, "because the truth might save you." She frowned, unsure if he was lying. But his voice was steady, too calm for deceit. He took a small device from his belt and placed it on the floor. A hologram flickered to life, showing an image of a woman. She was tall, graceful, with eyes like Lyra's and hair of silver white. "My mother," Lyra whispered. Varric nodded. "Queen Alara of Virene. She believed in peace. She believed humans in Virene could share power. The Council called her a traitor." The hologram changed, now showing a human man in a blue uniform with the Earth Alliance insignia. His face was kind, strong, and unmistakably human. Lyra stared at him. "Who is he?" "Your father," Varric said softly. "Captain Nathaniel Grant." Eli's head snapped up. "Grant?" "Yes," Varric continued. "The same bloodline as yours, human. He was your ancestor." Eli froze, realization spreading across his face. "Then she and I—" Lyra's voice was almost a whisper. "We share the same blood." Varric nodded. "Not directly, but close enough that your DNA called to hers. The same human code that built the old alliance still lives inside both of you. That's why the ancient machines responded to her. And to you." Lyra stepped back, struggling to breathe. "So all this time, I wasn't cursed?" "No," Varric said. "You were the bridge between two worlds. But the Council feared that bridge. They killed your mother to keep the old bloodlines pure." His eyes darkened. "And they ordered me to end yours." Lyra's hands clenched. "You obeyed." "Yes," he said, his voice breaking slightly. "I obeyed, and it has haunted me every day since." The prisoner's decision silence filled the room. Eli stared at the commander, torn between anger and pity. Lyra's eyes glowed faintly, her power flickering in the shadows. "Why tell me now?" she asked. "Why not 15 years ago?" "Because I was a coward," Varric said. "And because I believed what they told me, that you were dangerous. But now I see what you really are." Lyra stepped closer to the energy barrier. "And what am I?" Varric met her gaze. "The key to ending the war." He looked at Eli. "The humans have the other half of the code, a failsafe hidden in their ancient satellites. Together your DNA can activate something powerful, something the Council has been afraid of for generations." Eli frowned. "What kind of power?" Varric hesitated. "A weapon that can rewrite the genetic corruption of both species. Or destroy them completely." Lyra's heart pounded. "You mean, my blood can heal or kill?" "Yes," Varric said. "The code inside you can cleanse our DNA, remove the hatred that drives our wars, and burn everything to ash." Eli shook his head. "And the Council wants to control it." "They already are," Varric said grimly. "They plan to extract the code from you during the trial." Lyra's eyes flashed with fear and anger. "They'll never get it." Varric looked at her with a mix of pride and regret. "Then you must escape before dawn. I will unlock the cells. But once you're gone, they will come for both of us." The escape lights in the corridor dimmed as Varric disabled the ship's alarms. He opened the energy barrier, his hands shaking. Lyra stepped out slowly. "Why help me now?" Varric met her eyes. "Because I killed a child 15 years ago. Tonight I save her." Eli stepped forward. "We can take you with us." Varric shook his head. "No, my place is here." He handed Eli a small metallic cube. "This holds the coordinates to the human archive. Go there. You'll find the truth of your blood." Then he looked at Lyra one last time. "You carry her light, princess. Never forget that." Before they could reply, he turned away, drawing his weapon as the alarm sirens began to blare again. "Go!" he shouted. Lyra and Eli ran down the corridor as red lights flashed. The ship shook violently under enemy fire. They reached an escape pod, sealed the hatch, and launched into the dark sky. Through the small window, Lyra saw the warship explode behind them, a silent fire in the void. Varric was gone. She closed her eyes, tears floating weightlessly in the cabin. "He threw me once," she whispered. "Now he saved me." Eli reached over and took her hand. "He gave us a chance." Lyra looked at him, her voice trembling. "Then we'll use it. We'll find the truth." Outside, the stars burned brighter, and far away a new light awakened, calling to her blood again. The escape pod drifted silently through the endless black of space. Stars shimmered outside the window, cold and distant. Inside, only two hearts beat, one human, one not. Lyra sat in silence, staring at the stars. The light from distant suns reflected in her silver eyes. Her mind replayed everything: the fall, her mother's death, Varric's sacrifice. Each memory cut like glass, but under the pain something new was growing. Strength. Eli floated beside her, checking the small metallic cube Varric had given them. "Nora," he said softly, "can you decode this?" The AI's voice replied, faint but steady. "Processing. The data appears to be ancient Earth code, encrypted with alien language. Estimated time to unlock 2 hours." Eli sighed. "We'll have to wait." Lyra didn't respond. She kept watching the stars, her expression unreadable. After a long silence, she said quietly, "He called me princess." Eli looked up. "Because you are one." Lyra shook her head. "A princess of nothing. My world wants me dead. My blood makes me a target. I'm not royal, Eli, I'm just wrong." He turned toward her, his eyes serious. "No, you're what both worlds need. You're proof that we can exist together." She looked at him then, really looked. His face was bruised, his hands still shaking from battle, but his eyes burned with something fierce and honest. "I wish I believed that," she said. The signal from the Ark 2 hours later. The cube lit up, projecting a holographic map in the small cabin. It showed a frozen planet far from Virine's orbit, a world of ice and storm. "Destination Epsilon 9, human research site, abandoned 200 years ago," Nora announced. Eli frowned. "That's deep in no man's space. Why would the code lead there?" Lyra leaned forward. "Because that's where the first humans met my people. My mother spoke of a place hidden in ice, a last refuge for peace." Eli smiled faintly. "Then that's where we're going." He fired the pod's thrusters, and the stars stretched into streaks of light. The small ship jumped into hyperspace, leaving behind the burning remains of the royal warship, Epsilon 9. The planet was a white wasteland. Blizzards howled across endless ice fields. When the pod descended through the storm, its engines screamed in protest. Lyra looked through the window, whispering, "So cold, yet familiar." Eli landed the pod near a cluster of metallic towers half buried in snow. The structures looked human, but alien vines had grown over them, frozen in place. They stepped out, their boots crunching on the icy ground. Nora scanned the area. No life signs, but energy readings detected beneath the ice. Lyra walked ahead, her cloak snapping in the wind. The snow swirled around her like silver smoke. "This is where it began," she said softly. "The first bond between our kinds. The humans built something here, something powerful. They found a large door buried under layers of frost." Lyra placed her hand on it. The metal glowed beneath her touch, recognizing her DNA. The door opened with a hiss, revealing a huge underground chamber filled with glowing crystal machinery. Eli's breath caught. "What is this place?" Lyra's eyes widened. "The Ark, the Awakening." They stepped inside. The air was still and heavy with age. Machines the size of cities lined the walls, connected by streams of light that pulsed like veins. In the center stood a giant pillar made of pure crystal, alive, humming softly. Nora's voice trembled. "Captain, this structure is linked to the Ancient Alliance network. It was designed to heal DNA corruption across species." Eli looked at Lyra. Varric was right. This thing can fix the hatred written in our blood. Lyra stepped closer to the pillar. It pulsed brighter as she approached, reacting to her presence. Her mother's voice echoed in her memory. "One day, the blood of 2 worlds will awaken the Ark." She reached out and touched the crystal. A blinding surge of energy shot through her body. Her veins glowed silver. The ground trembled. "Lyra!" Eli shouted. "Let go!" But she couldn't. The Ark was alive. and it was speaking to her in both human and alien voices at once. Images flashed in her mind, her mother smiling, her father's face, the stars uniting in light. Then came the pain, unbearable, endless. She screamed, falling to her knees as energy poured through her. Eli rushed forward, grabbing her shoulders. "Stop, you're killing yourself." Her voice was barely a whisper. "I can see everything. Every world, every life. Eli, it's beautiful." The attack before Eli could answer, Nora's voice cut in sharply. "Warning, incoming ships. Multiple Virene signatures. The Council has found us." Eli looked up at the ceiling as the ground shook. "How did they—" "They traced the Ark's activation," Nora said. "They're here to destroy it." Lyra staggered to her feet, her eyes now glowing with fierce light. "They'll never stop." She walked toward the chamber's center as the first explosions rocked the base. The ceiling cracked. Ice and metal fell around them. Eli grabbed her hand. "We have to run." Lyra shook her head. "If we run, they'll destroy this place. This is what they fear, Eli, not me. This." He looked at her, realizing what she meant. "You can control it now, can't you?" She nodded slowly. "I think so. But it needs both halves, human and Virene. It needs us." Eli stepped closer. "Then let's finish what they started." The rise, they stood before the Ark together, placing their hands against its glowing surface. Light exploded through the chamber, a wave of power spreading across the ice fields. The storm above stopped. The sky turned gold. The royal ships in orbit faltered, their systems shutting down. The soldiers inside screamed as their armor flickered, their weapons turning to ash. On the ground, the Ark rose from the ice like a living mountain, shining brighter than the suns. Lyra's voice echoed across the planet, calm, powerful, and filled with sorrow. "No more war. No more hate. I am both. I am neither. I am what you feared, and what you need." The energy reached across the galaxy, breaking the genetic curse that separated human and Virene. Across distant worlds, beings of both blood awoke, their eyes glowing silver. Eli felt the power rushing through him, warm, endless, alive. He looked at Lyra and smiled. "You did it." Lyra turned to him, tears in her eyes. "We did it." But before he could reply, a beam of fire from a dying warship struck the ice beside them. The shockwave sent him flying backward. The world shook. "Eli!" she screamed. He fell, smoke rising around him. The Ark's light flared again, wild, uncontrollable, as Lyra ran to him. His voice was weak, trembling. "It's okay. You have to finish it." Lyra's tears fell on his hand. "Don't you leave me, human." He smiled faintly. "I never will." Then the Ark's light engulfed them both, a silent storm of creation and destruction, and the planet vanished in pure white. The galaxy was silent. No engines, no weapons, no voices, and only light. For a long, endless moment, the Ark's energy had burned through the stars like a rising sun. Worlds trembled, skies glowed, and then everything went still. When the light faded, the planet Epsilon 9 was gone. In its place hung a new world, and half crystal, half earth, glowing faintly in the void. The Ark had changed the land itself, reshaping it into something alive. And in the center of that new world, beneath a silver sky, a single figure stood among the ruins. Lyra. Her eyes opened slowly. The storm had ended. The cold no longer bit at her skin. She looked around, ice melted into rivers of light, and the air shimmered like glass. Her body glowed faintly, her veins silver and gold. She wasn't fully Virene anymore, but she wasn't human either. She was something beyond both. Her voice trembled as she whispered, "Eli?" No answer. Only the soft sound of wind moving through the crystal plains. She walked across the glowing ground, searching. Her heart ached. Her mind replayed the final moment, his voice, his hand slipping from hers, the flash of light. "Eli," she shouted again, her voice echoing through the new world. Then she saw him. He lay among the fragments of the Ark, motionless, his face peaceful. His chest was still, his blaster beside him. Lyra fell to her knees beside him, tears spilling down her cheeks. "You said you'd never leave me," she whispered, her hands trembling as she touched his face. "You liar," but his body was cold. The human heart that had carried her through darkness had finally gone quiet. The light of life, Lyra's tears hit the ground, and where they fell, the earth glowed brighter. The ark responded to her grief, to her pain. It hummed softly like a heartbeat awakening again. She looked at her hands. Energy flowed between her fingers, warm, alive. The same power that could destroy also had the power to heal. Her mother's words echoed in her mind. The blood of two worlds will bring balance. She pressed her glowing hands against Eli's chest. You gave me life once, she whispered. Now I give it back. A soft light spread from her palms, flowing into him. The ground pulsed with energy. The air shimmered. For a moment, everything froze him, and then Eli gasped. Taking a sharp breath, he opened his eyes. Lyra? He whispered weakly. She laughed through her tears. You stubborn human. He looked around, confused. Where are we? Lyra smiled faintly. A world born from both of us. The ark remade everything. The war is over. Eli tried to sit up, his voice trembling. You did it? No, she said softly. We did. He reached out and took her hand. Their fingers intertwined, human warmth meeting alien light. Around them the crystal field shimmered brighter, as if the planet itself was listening. The new dawn days passed. Or maybe years. Time felt strange in the new world. Word spread across the stars. The wars had stopped. The fleets had fallen silent. Across Virene and human space, people began to change, but slowly, peacefully. Those born after the Ark's awakening carried traces of both species in their blood. No more pure lines, no more curses, no more hate. And in the center of this new peace stood Lyra Virene Grant, crowned beneath two suns. They called her the Queen of Two Worlds. She didn't wear armor or jewels. Her crown was made of living crystal that shimmered with the light of the Ark. Her throne stood not in a palace, but in an open hall under the stars, where humans and Virene sat side by side. Eli stood beside her, healed but scarred. His hair had streaks of silver now, the mark of the Ark's touch. He was her protector, her voice, her heart. Together they rebuilt what centuries of fear had destroyed. No empire ruled anymore. No council commanded. Only the alliance of the new dawn, built by humans, aliens, and hybrids alike. A world where children were born without the burden of being different. The legend lives one evening. As the twin suns set over the crystal plains, Lyra stood on the balcony of her hall watching the light fade into gold. Eli joined her quietly, his hands resting on the railing. 15 years ago, he said softly, they threw you off a cliff. Lyra smiled faintly. And a human caught me. 15 years later, he chuckled. I still don't understand why you didn't give up back then. She turned to him, her eyes glowing gently. Because someone was calling me. I didn't know it was you, but something inside me said I wasn't done yet. Eli looked at her for a long time. Do you think the galaxy's really at peace now? Lyra's smile faded slightly. For now. But peace is fragile. There will always be those who fear what they don't understand. She lifted her hand and a small spark of silver light floated from her palm, rising into the air like a firefly. That's why I'll keep this world alive, not through war, but through memory. Eli nodded. And if they come again? Lyra's eyes hardened, but her tone stayed calm. Then they'll meet a queen who remembers what pain costs. The last signal. That night, as the stars returned, a soft beeping sound echoed through the great hall. Nora's voice, unchanged after everything, filled the quiet air. Queen Lyra, incoming transmission. Unknown origin, Lyra frowned. From where? Nora hesitated. Coordinates unknown. Signal pattern matches ancient human code. Eli looked at her. Could it be one of the lost colonies? Lyra shook her head slowly. The rhythm of the signal was familiar. A steady pulse, soft, gentle, and hauntingly human. Beep, beep, beep. Her eyes widened. No, I've heard this before. Eli listened, puzzled. What is it? Lyra turned toward the stars, her voice barely a whisper. The same signal that found me the night I fell. The sound grew louder, stronger, coming from beyond their world. Somewhere, something, or someone he was calling again. Lyra's heart began to race. She smiled faintly, her voice filled with wonder. He's calling again. Eli looked at her, confused. Who? She turned to him, eyes shimmering with light and memory. Not who. What comes next? The stars flared, the signal pulsed faster, and the camera pulled back, showing their glowing world floating peacefully between two suns. The human and alien empires that once warred now orbited together like twin hearts. And above them, beyond the edge of known space, a new light flickered in the dark, the beginning of another story. Epilogue. The voice among stars centuries later. Travelers would tell tales of a queen who was not fully human nor fully alien, a being of both love and power who united the broken stars. Some said she still watched from the heavens, guiding lost ships through storms. Others swore they heard her voice in the static between signals whispering, "You are not alone." The end.